Hi, my name is Paul Grogan and welcome to another Gaming Rules Quick and Dirty review. In this video, I'm going to be telling you what I think about Teotihuacan, which is how I'm pronouncing it until somebody tells me differently. Now, this game is one of the games that my Patreon supporters voted on as a game that I would review this month. So thank you very much for the support of all my patrons. And if you do enjoy this video and any of the other content that I create, then please consider supporting me over at patreon.com/gaming rules. So, what about this game? Designed by Daniele Tascini, published by NSKN, which has now been rebranded to Board and Dice in 2018, and I think it was officially released at Essen Spiel 2018. This game first came on my radar in the summer of 2018 as they had a prototype of the game which was being played at UK Games Expo. And many of my friends, some of which who enjoy very similar types of games to me, played the game. They just played one round of the game, or one era of the game, and absolutely loved it. So this was very high on my radar. I just looking at the game, and from what I heard about it, it sounded like I was really going to enjoy this game. Now, I was lucky enough to receive an advanced copy of the game. I played it a couple of times before Essen Spiel, and we actually talked about it on my podcast 65, which was where I talked with Matt Evans from Creaking Shelves and Tom Heath from Slicker Drips, and we talked about all the games that we were looking forward to that was coming out at Essen Spiel. And because me and Tom had actually played this game beforehand, we kind of focused on other games that were coming out that year. But, and I said this in the podcast, that if I hadn't had the chance to play it, this would have been number one on my most anticipated games that was coming out at Essen Spiel 2018. And I'm happy to say that I am not disappointed by this game at all. It was as good as I expected it to be based on what people have told me. Possibly even better. I didn't really know much about the game other than people were saying it was great. But then when I actually got it and played it, I was like, wow. So in short, this is one of my top games of 2018. I've probably said that a lot recently in my videos, but there were a few. How high up it might even be my game of the year 2018. I don't know. Give me another year to have played through them all again, another few times, and then I will let you know. But as it stands, fantastic. Love the game. Let's tell you a little bit about it and why I like it. So it's Teotihuacan. It's set in, obviously, the continent of South America, Mayans, you're doing stuff. The theme is nice and you're building up a pyramid in the middle, but at the end of the day, this is a Euro game with lots of interlocking mechanisms. If you don't like mechanisms in a game and you really want theme and things like that, then you're probably not going to have it here. It is just your normal Euro game stuff, and there's quite a lot going on. I class this game as a heavy game, possibly on the on the lighter side of the heavy bracket, but there's so much going on in this game. Some people would class it as medium to heavy, and to be honest, I'm not sure whether it's medium to heavy or heavy, but it's in that category there. I'll give you a quick summary of what the game is all about. You're trying to get as many points as you can, like in a lot of Euro games, and there's many ways to get points. And what the game takes place over 3 eras, and you will have your dice over the different areas, as you can see here. And on your turn, what you actually have a choice of doing is actually very simple. You choose one of your workers and you move it 1 to 3 areas clockwise, and then you do something where you land. And then the worker upgrades and it goes to the next highest number. And when a worker reaches a 6, that's good because it ascends and you're going to get some bonuses. And then it starts back as a 1, as a newborn baby is born. That's basically how it is. Now, where it gets complex is that when you arrive in a new area, let's say I decide to move this one and I just decide to move it 1, this is the quarry where you get stone, okay? There are 3 things that you can do in each area, and the first thing you can do in an area is you can use the action of that area, which in this one is get stone. And basically there's a table and you look up how many workers you've got, the power of your weakest worker, and that tells you what you get, okay? Then one of your workers advances. There's an area here for collecting stone, there's an area here for collecting wood, and there's an area here for collecting gold. So that's those 3 areas. There's an area here where you spend the stone and you build bits of the pyramid into here, which is quite cool. There's a bit here where you can pay gold to place decorations onto there. More on those later on. They get you points. There's an area here with 3 special abilities that do cool stuff. There's an area here with technologies, which will give you bonuses for the rest of the game. And then there's an area over here where you spend wood to build a house. And you take one of the houses off here and you put it on a row and you will get some points and you'll move up on this track here. So that's a brief summary of what all of the different areas do. But doing an action in an area will cost you cocoa. Cocoa is the currency of this game, and you will pay cocoa depending on how many different coloured workers are already there on that space. So in this case, the blue player moved to there. There's one other colour there, so you pay 1 cocoa, which is quite a cheap action. But if there were loads of different colours there, you would pay lots of cocoa, and you might not have enough cocoa. So another thing you can do when you move to a space is forego the action and just take some cocoa, which sometimes is what you have to do. But a number of the spaces have a third option, and this is the worship space. This is actually a completely separate space within this area. And what you do is on the worship space, you can basically do this, or you can do the tile, or you can pay to do both. So within each area, or within some of the areas anyway, that one, that one, that one, and that one, there is a worship action, but that locks your worker, and then you have to skip a turn to get your workers back or pay 3 cocoa. There's these god tracks, so there are 3 gods in the game, and every time you see like a coloured god symbol, you will be moving up that track. The tracks get you, this one gets you resources, this one gets you points, this one gets you cocoa. There's special bonuses if you reach this space, and there's also an extra bonus if you reach the top. There is the Avenue of the Dead track, which you go up every time a worker ascends or every time you build a house, and that's got bonuses on it as well. Every time you build a piece of the pyramid, be it one of these pieces or a decoration, you move up on the pyramid track. As I say, there's lots going on. And it's putting it all together. Now, the good thing about a game with lots going on is there's lots of different strategies. There's lots of ways that you can play it. There's lots of things that you can do. You could go for lots and lots of technologies and use them to the best of your ability. You could go build lots of houses in the Avenue of the Dead because that will get points. There is a lot going on. So your first game is going to be, obviously it's going to take longer like most games, but you're going to have to wade through the rulebook or watch a video online, and it's going to take you a while to play. But as I say, the benefit of lots of different mechanisms and lots of things going on is that you do have lots of, variability in different strategies that you can take. Now, touching on variability, I wanted to say this. This game has a huge amount of variability because what I've got here is I've just got the basic setup and I'm using the pre-printed things on the board. But actually, and I actually thought this was a crazy idea and totally a waste of cardboard at the start. And I've never actually used these. I've played this game 3 times so far, 3-player, 3-player, and 4-player, and I've never actually used these. But now that I know how they work, I can see how they work. So basically, what you can do is you can randomize these. These are exactly the same boards as what's already printed on the board, but you can put them in a different place. And I originally thought, well, that's just pointless. That doesn't do anything. Okay, so that space has been replaced by that one, and that one's been replaced. So you still use all of the boards. They're just in a different place. But the order of them does really matter because you're moving your workers clockwise. So for example, in this setup, this is the gathering stone place, and 1, 2, 3 away is the place where you spend your stone. And remember, you can move up to 3 spaces. So that ties in nicely. This is the space for getting wood. And 1, 2, 3 away is the space where you spend wood. So this basic configuration setup suggested for your first game, I can see why it's done that. Well, what happens if the stone was after the place where you need it? Suddenly the game is very different because you're going to have to get the stone and then it's going to be ages before you spend it. So these are not different boards. These are exactly the same as what's printed on the board, but you lay them out randomly and the order of things will be different. The technologies, these are the 6 pre-printed ones that come with the game. But there's a whole host of other ones. There's all of these technologies here. And what you're supposed to do is shuffle them and put 6 on there. That will change the game. You've also got, I mentioned this palace area where there are these 3 special abilities. Well, I've got all of these tiles here. And you pick 3 of them and put them on there. And that will change the game as well. So there's so many different things that you can configure about the game. And every game will be different. Now, the discovery tiles, let's come on to these discovery tiles. And this is one slight negative point in the game. There's loads of discovery tiles and you will be getting them and collecting them, and they will be giving you special abilities, be it one-off abilities, or some of them have got masks, and if you collect masks of different types, you will score at the end of each era. And there's loads of them. You're not going to get through all of them in the game. You're going to get through a lot of them because every time one is taken in on one of these places, it's replaced. So slight downside of the game is that this space here in a 4-player game has 5 discovery tokens on, and there's no, it is a bit of a downside, but I can't see any other way of doing it. Whenever you advance onto that space, you get one of those 5 tiles. You don't take the top one, you actually look through and you can choose whichever one you want. So the reason I'm saying it's a downside is I like to have all the information visible to me, and I guess, yeah, I could look through it. But a lot of time, even when you're explaining to people, you can take any tile in the stack, they still just take the top one, thinking that that's all you can take. As I say, I can't think of any other way it could be done. Let's go on to the components, because you've seen all these components and you haven't seen these here. These are starting setup tiles, which you choose. These are for the solo game, because the game has a solo mode, which I've not tried, but I've heard from other people it's really good. The components I think are really good. The card is nice and thick. These, I really like these. One of my friends didn't like them and wished they were sort of the plasticky resin ones like you get in Dragon Castle and Azul. That would have increased the cost of this game. So I think the components are really good. These are really thick and they stack up nice, and this pyramid, once you start building this pyramid up, it just looks really nice. So yeah, components wise, haven't got a problem with it whatsoever. The wood's a little bit small compared to the gold and the stone. I'm just trying to pick nits here where I can. But yeah, no problems with the components at all. Rulebook. The rulebook was actually pretty good. We didn't have any problems, I don't think, with the rulebook. All of the stuff, all of these bonuses here and all of these, they're all explained on the back page of the rulebook. Well, not just the back page, the back few pages. So that's really good. The appendix at the back of the rulebook, that's where you would have it. So I don't think, there's plenty of examples and it was all pretty clear. I don't think we had any questions about the game from reading the rulebook. Now, one thing that I thought was a little strange when we first played it, but I can absolutely understand why it's done like this, is you are supposed to choose your starting setup, I believe, based on these tiles, and it will give you some resources and it'll allow your workers to start on various spaces. If you don't know the game, you haven't got a clue. You might as well just be picking at random. But what they've done, and I think this is a really good idea, is they have done a suggested setup for each of the players to get you started playing as soon as possible without having to make any decisions, without you knowing what you're doing. However, this setup is actually quite lengthy and complicated. So he's like, right, for player 1, you get 5 cocoa, 1 wood, 2 stone, 4 gold, 1 movement up on the green track, and the following workers in the... It's like, wow, you've got a whole load of information to tell you exactly where you start. As I say, not a problem with it, but the first time we played it, we sat down and was like, wow, that's all just for one player. Right, next player, what do you start with? And as I say, when you play the game in full, you would be choosing those. So yeah, rulebook was clear, very well structured, had no problems with it whatsoever. Yeah, now let's go back to the overview of the game because I missed it. After all players have taken a turn, this white marker, can't remember what it's called, the Eclipse Marker, I think, moves 1 space. And also, every time a player ascends, so when their worker gets to a 6 and they die, it also moves 1 space down as well. When the white marker reaches the black marker, it's the end of the era. And then you do various bits of scoring. You have to feed your workers. And then the white marker resets. And oddly enough, turns get shorter. So the second era, the white marker only has to get to here in a 4-player game, and in the third era, it only has to get to here. It works fine. It was just a little bit odd when we started playing it that the eras get shorter. So yeah, 3 eras, and then you do end of game scoring. Now, the graphic design of the game. The graphic design, I think, is really good. All of the iconography is very clear. Apart from, I think, there was one bit here that I felt that was a little bit unusually worded, but the rest of it was all clear. The only thing I think is missing, and this is, a lot of people forget this in the game, whenever you build a decoration onto here, you also advance up the pyramid track. Well, the pyramid track has an icon. I think that icon should have been here to say, oh, just do it, because so many people forget to do that. But yeah, graphic design It's really good. Now, art is subjective, but I love the art style in this game. I mean, just look at it. It's gorgeous. For me, I just love this style of artwork. There's so much detail on there, and I don't feel it distracts at all from the game. You know, I'm looking at it now, and there's things here that I hadn't seen before because I'm too busy playing the game. So it definitely doesn't get in the way of it, but I really like the visual aspect of the game. That's all good. Reasons why I like this game, really crunchy decisions, right? So it's like, right, which worker do I move? I've got a choice of 3 workers. Where do I move him to? I can move 1, 2 or 3 spaces. And, oh, well, I'd planned my turn and I was going to go there and I was going to collect stone, but I've only got 2 cocoa and there's 3 different players there now, so it's going to cost me 3. I need to have a change of plan. Now, I'm mentioning that because a couple of people have mentioned to me that it's a negative point for them, is that they plan their turn, I'm going to go there, I'm going to get stone, but then something happens and they suddenly can't do it because they don't have the cocoa and they can't afford the action. For me, that's absolutely fine because it's just like any worker placement game where somebody else, you know where you want to go, but then somebody else goes there. You always have a backup plan. You're like, all right, I can't go there now. But as I say, you've got 3 workers. There's always something that you can do. There are benefits to stacking up your workers on the same space because going back to this table again, well, let's look at one that's the right way up. This table depends on how many workers you have on the space and the power of the lowest worker. So the more workers you have on a space, the better in terms of that particular action. So there is one sort of tactic in the game of like, right, I'm going to move all my workers to the roll in this space and get the biggest benefit. Then I'm going to move 1 to here, then the next one to here, then the next one to here. And basically you keep sort of stacking them up. That is one way to do it, but there's so many other things you're going to be wanting to do in the game. And as I say, the decisions that I find that I'm making in the game are really crunchy. The negative points about the game is possibly the weight of the game. Now for me, I've said recently that a lot of games are in my sweet spot and any heavier and I have a problem with them. This is pushing it a little bit. I think this game for me, if there was 5% trimmed out, it would be fine. There's a couple of extra little fiddly bits that's like the decorations. Okay, so when you build them, they cost you gold and you've got to remember to move up on the pyramid track, even though the icon's not there. It gets you 3 points. You can only put it on one of the steps on the 4 sides, but then, and it goes on, and if the symbols match, you'll get points, and if the color matches, you get a bonus on the right. You get the idea? But also, the arrow has to be pointing inwards. It's like, why is there that extra one fiddly little rule? And I get it. It's possibly these were maybe a little bit overpowered, so they put the arrow. No, just make them worth less points. Having an arrow on there is just an extra little fiddly extra step that I don't feel is needed. The other thing about the way that the palace works and the way, there should be some discovery tiles there that I've left off. But this whole worship action, okay, yeah, I get that. But the extra rules involved, you can either do this action, or you can do the bottom action, or you can pay 1 cocoa to do both. But then you're on this locked space, and if somebody else comes along, they can pay a cocoa to kick you off, and then they can do either one. And it's like, okay, I haven't thought about this ahead, but wouldn't it just be better to say, oh yeah, you pay 2 cocoa and do both the actions? It's like, I can understand you've given the players the choice, but there are quite a lot of rules in this game which, as I say, people who play games like this I should be able to remember them after a couple of games. But there was a lot to take in, you know, the first time we played it, and a lot of little fiddly bits. Oh, you have to remember every time you do that, you move up on this track. As I say, it's all interlocking mechanisms. It does kind of all fit together. You'll need a couple of games to get used to it. I've said a lot of negative things about it, but let's go back to what I said at the start. Possibly my best game of 2018. Absolutely love it. Will never say no to a game of it and can't wait to play it again. I'm even tempted to give the solo game a go, even though I don't really play solo games. Anyway, right, that's a very quick, very dirty review of Teotihuacan. Probably pronounced it differently that time. Thank you very much for watching. As I said at the start, this video has been created thanks to my Patreon campaign. So if you enjoyed this video and any of the other content that I create, then please consider supporting me over at patreon.com/gaming rules. Even just $1 a month, it all adds up. And I'm hoping to make my next goal sometime in the next few months, hopefully. Anyway, right, until next time, take care and thanks for watching. Gaming Rules is proudly sponsored by Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. Visit GameToppersLLC.com.